Hello and welcome to another edition of Florida Sportsman Action Spotter Podcast. Hey, we're going to have a lot of fun this evening. We're going to go around the state getting fishing reports, starting up in the northeast corner with Captain David Voorhees, working our way all the way down the east coast, through the Keys, up the west coast, and out the Panhandle. And I got a question for the boys tonight. Man, I got a book on knots the other day. It had 100 knots in it I'd never heard of. You know how many knots I use religiously? 3 or 4. Probably down to 2 or 3. I want the 3 knots that each one of these guys lean on every day to make themselves a living. It's going to be interesting to see who likes what. Tonight's Action Spotter, like all our Action Spotters, will be brought to you by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. By Shimano, bringing people and nature together. By Tournament Master Chum. Oh, it's the best chum on earth, all right. By Nosara Paradise Rentals, your dream vacation. By D.O.A. Lures, the unfair advantage. By Young Boats. You want the finest in flats, bay, and offshore hybrids? You need to check out youngboats.com. By the Castaway Hat Co, the hat that's helping save our seas. And by Academy Sports and Outdoors. Right stuff, low price, every day. And let's get Florida started with a quick trip up to northeast Florida and check in with Captain David Voorhees. David, how are you?
Hey, doing good, Captain Ricky, doing good.
Let's see. I will predict that you have seen some mullet this week.
Boy, the mullet run is it's unbelievable. It's been in full swing. Really good flounder bite this week we're seeing along the intercoastal. Seeing at the mouth of these feeder creeks, we're seeing a lot of good flounder, picking up some here and there. Got to remind everybody, season closes the 15th. Of next month. So you only got a few more weeks to get out and get your flounder. You
know what's funny is they're not in the river. It's not even so much just my dock. I mean, obviously I check it every day. But for the last 2 weeks, not only has there been no boats at my dock, there's no boats in my whole stretch over here. And I mean, I can...
Rick, these tides have been crazy.
That's true.
You know, not only we've had this northeaster that's been blowing on us, we've had these extremely high tides pushing in lots of water. It flooded today, on a day it wasn't supposed to, just from the high surf we had from this hurricane that came by us. So we're getting some very high water coming into the St. Johns River. That could be affecting them. I'm not sure. But the redfish seem to be biting really good this week up on the flat. Lots of reds in the grass, up along the edges of the grass, at the mouth of the creeks, where it empties into a lot of the Spartina grass. We saw a lot of good red fishing this week. I think we limited out every day this past week. So, it was just an incredible day for red fishing every day this week. And what we had was a situation, I want to just mention it real quickly if I can. We had a situation that I always look for and I like, and I tell guys, look for this line up. And that's when we have the moon straight overhead early in the day, sometimes in the morning before 12 noon, and we've got an outgoing tide. And I like that because that's sort of a major feed. I look at those things. I like that moon over, and I like that high outgoing tide. And, it seemed to really produce for me this week. So, I always tell people, keep an eye on certain things like that. That's one of the things I like to keep an eye on.
You are the master of realizing what your surroundings are and realizing what the environment's doing. You are the best at it I've ever seen. I've got a question for you. You are a many-year full-time fishing guide, and not only that, one of the things I love about you the most is you're such a student of the game. All right, your knots have to hold every day, every time. Give me 3 that you use religiously and can't live without.
Well, the number one knot is going to be the uni knot.
That's mine. Yep.
Yeah. And you could do the uni knot. You could, if there's only one knot you learn, it'd be the uni knot. If you ask that question, if there's only one, it'd be the uni knot, and that's the knot I like to tie my braided line, the double uni. You can do a lot with that. Now the other knot I use, which is the knot that I attach my my hooks and my jigs to my leader is a type of cinch knot, and I like the double, the improved clinch knot is the one I like. And that gives you two lines. That's when you go into your hook's guide twice, and then you do your wrap, and then you come back through the two holes you created. So it gives you a little bit more on that hook than just a single piece of line. Mm-hmm. And then the third one, which you're going to find this one very unusual because, it's a knot you don't think about a lot, but light tackle guys and fly fishermen do. And it's a knot that I like whenever I'm tying real heavy leader to a real light, going from a light line to a heavy leader. For example, let's say I'm fishing, 12-pound test, but I want a 30-pound leader. That's a huge jump without tapering. And the one knot that I like to do that is an Albright.
Right.
And that's where you actually, and you have to look that one up. But the Albright knot, the heavier of the line, you actually bend it, and then the lighter line goes in and loops around it like a hangman's noose and cinches around that. So it's a very good knot to use when you're going really, really light line to heavy line. And I do that in fly fishing quite a bit.
I tell you, it's another use for that too, David, that I've used it quite a bit is I will use it to add a wire trace on the end of my line. If you will double back that wire and wrap the mono around it, just like you're talking about, same knot, you'd be surprised how well it does tightening down on itself and on that wire without breaking. In fact, I used it exclusively for tarpon when we would basically hold them at parade rest, which is hard to do, as you know, on 125-pound mono and number 7 wire. I never had that connection fail, so that's another good use for it. David, that's a great report. 3 perfect knots. My 3, I included the FG in mine. I know it's a pain in the neck to tie, but if I join my Dacron, not my Dacron, but my braid to a mono leader, and I make my mono leader long enough to where I know I'm going to have to cut it back 2 or 3 times, I can get a couple of days out of an FG knot. You just don't want to. You don't want to tie it on a rocking boat, but man, does it ever make for a skinny connection when you get it right? Thank you, David. We look forward to talking to you next week.
All right, Rick, I'll be here, buddy.
Captain David Borges from Northeast Florida. Thanks, Cap, for a great report. Before we move along the coast, let's get a word from Shimano. The year was 1953 when one of the true pioneers of big game fishing hung it up. No, it wasn't one of our action spotters. It was none other than Ernest Hemingway. I just don't want to do it anymore, he's credited with saying. The tackle has become so sophisticated, the fish don't have a chance. Can you imagine walking Ernest through the aisles of strike zone fishing and showing him the latest and greatest from Shimano? Can you imagine handing him a Saragusa spinner that weighs less than his bait used to and could put more torque on a rampaging tuna than the great old reels of his day? No, Ernest, I'm afraid you left us too early. The fights with great fish still go on today, and we sometimes get beat. But if I were a sea monster of your day, I think I'd rather do battle with you and one of those big old reels and face the tools that Shimano has stocked in strike zone fishing 68 years later. Time to hit my favorite little fishing village, Stuart, Florida, and that's where Captain John Earhart resides. John, how are you?
I'm good. Glad to be here, Rick.
Well, we're mighty glad to have you, son. How's the fishing? You got mullet on the beach down there in Stuart?
Yeah, we got mullet on the beach. We got mullet in the river. We got mullet all over the place. So it definitely seems like the mullet run is finally here, and it's not in full force, but it's close. So, I mean, there's plenty of opportunity if you want to fish the beach with lures or live bait, or if you want to fish the river around seawalls, docks, inlets. Pretty much anywhere you go and you see mullet breaking the surface, there's a good chance you're going to catch something, and snook, jacks, tarpon, those are all to be expected right now. And even might have some redfish, flounder, and sea trout mixed in as well.
Excellent.
You soak mullet long enough, you're going to get the bites this time of year.
Something's going to eat it if it's a sail cat, huh?
Anything but a sail cat.
There you go. Yep. Have you heard anything from offshore at all?
Yeah, the offshore fishing, when we can get out there, it's been decent. We're getting a few sailfish. I would expect 1 to 3 sailfish a day. You know, that's, again, 90 to maybe about 280 feet. Sometimes they're out a little bit deeper. You know, I'll be fishing around color changes, hard edges, a little bit of weed line, you know, and expect a few mahi mixed in. I've seen some guys catching some real nice wahoos, vertical jigging. So
really?
If you find a nice weed line, you know, and nothing's biting on the surface while you're trolling or drifting live baits, don't be afraid to drop a vertical jig down there with a wire tippet and give it several attempts, and you never know, you might catch your biggest fish of the day that way.
I'll be darned. That's cool. Are they the real monsters? Are they like 30 pounders? How big are they?
They're 15 to 40 pounders.
Okay,
I mean,
solid fish.
I've seen guys catching real small ones, and I like to call those weehoos.
Yep.
Because they're just too small for me to want to keep.
Hey, I got a question for you. Your livelihood depends on your tackle holding together. Give me 3 knots that you trust and believe in and use every day.
The 3 knots I use every day would be the standard loop knot, the Albright knot, and the FG knot. Those 3 knots are my favorite, and the FG knot is, in my opinion, the best knot there is. It's just a pain in the butt to tie it.
Yeah, I tend to tie it with really long leaders, knowing that I'm going to have to cut them back 3 or 4 times, you know, and I don't want to retie that FG knot every time I recut it. I have been known to have an FG knot, maybe 10 inches of mono, and then my bait. You're right. It's a piece of cake at the dining room table. It ain't no piece of cake when it's blowing north 18 and you're offshore.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and the only downside to the FG knot is occasionally if you don't tie it perfectly, which you have to, the knot can slip out and come undone on itself. So that if you're not a seasoned knot tire, definitely practice tying your FG knot before you go out and go fishing, and test it to make sure you're tying it properly, because you don't want to get the best bite of the day and your FG knot's not secured properly, and that fish literally just comes undone because your knot wasn't tied properly.
John, I tell you, I went to dabbing a dab of super glue on the very end of it, just to keep it all wrapped together every time I do it. And it's, so far, knock on wood, I haven't had one fail on me, so I'm going to keep tying it. Thank you, buddy. We look forward to talking to you next week.
Yes, sir. I'll check in with you then.
Good luck with your deer hunting. Captain John Earhart from Stuart, Florida. Our thanks to John Earhart for a great Stuart report. Time to hit Miami and Captain Ray Rocher. Ray, how are you?
I'm doing good.
Good. How's life been aboard the Miss Brit fleet?
It was good. I fished yesterday, and just beautiful weather. We just had such a great stretch of weather. I don't know how long that's going to hold out, but the guys yesterday just wanted meat, so we went down the reef and caught some fish trolling, bonitas and a mackerel, and then went and dropped on a mutton spot and caught a couple muttons, and then went and hit the vermilions and yellow eyes, and then went out and got some tilefish, and then came in and caught yellowtail. So it was a meat mission, but the good news is everything bit.
There you go.
You know, there was fish in every spot, and the yellow eyes and vermilions were actually marking better than normal. We caught 20 yellowtails with the engine running, just chumming an area that was good. And, you know, it was a fun day. I had my daughter and my son, who are 15 and 16 years old, as deckhands, and it doesn't get any better.
Oh, that's fantastic. Hey, let me ask you something. You mentioned yellow eyes. What is your minimum depth to start looking for them? I've caught them very deep, but I'd love to know how shallow I can look for them.
So the person that I think knows the most about that is Wayne Kahn, who runs the Reward Fishing Fleet. And he tells me, I wasn't on the boat, but he tells me he gets them in as shallow as 140, 150 feet certain times of the year. Now, I've never seen the mark and dropped in it, but he showed me some pictures of big yellow eyes, like, 3-pounders, which is big for Miami.
Mm-hmm.
And just really nice fish. And I usually fish from between 200 and 300 feet. That's kind of our magic depth. And our fish are, half a pound to 2.5 pounds would be a big one. But, they're great fillers, great fish to take home.
Yeah, that's shallower than I thought, Ray. I had caught him at 600 in the Bahamas, and I caught a grand total of 1 on the edge up here in Mayport in 160 feet, but that was it. Hey, Ray, you more than anybody I know, your tackle has to be right every day, whether it's a big tournament, whether it's a charter, whatever it is. Give me 3 knots that you depend on for your livelihood.
The probably the most important knot, because it's the one that connects the single line, is a bimini twist. I've broken hundreds of them just experimenting, to see what combination of wraps and how you wrap it. Some people spiral the tag line quickly, and some people do it slowly, side by side. And so I've just really, tried to school myself in what I think creates 100% connection there. And I would say on mono, I tie a 40 turn bimini, unless it's heavy line. When I say heavy, over 50, then I might go down to 30 wraps. And then on braid, I do 50. And I wrap the tag side by side. I let the tag touch. And that's why I put so many turns in it, because you can imagine, to put that over wrap on it, if you're side by side touching, you're going to consume a lot of revolutions.
Yep.
So I look at that outer wrap as fingers. Those are fingers squeezing the internal knot. So that's my number one. That I want 100% connection there. And then beyond that, it's not nearly as critical. I'll use a Yucatan to connect my leader to the double line. I mean, there's a variety of knots you can use, but if you tie it properly, and I typically use 8 to 10 wraps, and you pull it down super tight, tug on the tag, and trim it as short as possible. It really does not hang in the guides, and trimming it short, I've never had a problem with them pulling. And then the third knot is either a single strand or double strand fisherman's knot, depending on the application. So 3 up, 3 down, and through the loop above the hook.
Now, on your Yucatan, I didn't mean to interrupt you. If I can ask you a question on your Yucatan, you come through the loop in the bottom of the bimini. Do you wrap up and back down, or do you just wrap up?
Up and down.
Okay. 8 each way, or 4 each way?
4 each way.
4 each way. Okay, good deal. All right.
And it seems to, like I said, if you really pull on it, and then I like to pull on the tag a little bit while I'm under pressure on the other 2 lines, above and below the knot, have pressure, and give it a little tug. Trim it short, and it seems like that knot seats so well, I've never had one come loose. Now, if I'm I'm fishing a marlin tournament, just, if I ever have any anxiety over a knot, I'll just floss the tag. So let's say, for instance, I'm tying a bimini. Instead of just clipping it off short, I'll put some floss on the double strands of line, and I'll floss that tag downward. It's overkill, but that's about the only other, work I put into a knot. I like to see them pull down tight. The one rule of thumb to remember on all knots, if it pulls down a little weird and doesn't seem to seat properly, cut it off and retie it. It doesn't matter if you got to tie a new bimini. Do it. Don't be, unsure about your knots. That's your whole day.
It sure is. Especially in your case, you say it's a little bit overkill. Well, when there's $3 million on the line, it might not be overkill.
That's right. That's stuff that keeps you up at night.
As always, Cap, we appreciate your time so much. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
Yes, sir.
All right. Take care. Captain Ray Rocher from the Miss Brit Fleet. Now, let's hop over to Southwest Florida and check in with Snook Stamp Charters and Captain Greg Stamper. Greg, how are you?
I'm doing very well today, Rick. Very well.
Good deal. I'm glad to hear it. Looking at the approaching storm, I hope a week from now we can say the exact same thing. Tell me how your fishing's been this week.
This week it's been really good. So, the past week we had so much rain, and I think we talked about how the water had dropped 5 and 6 degrees in some areas, and the fish started to get really, really, really happy, which is fantastic because, we're getting ready to move into that time of year when we get that cooler weather every once in a while, and the fish just really, really respond to that. A couple times we went out real early in the morning this week. We absolutely tore up some redfish. We caught quite a few redfish, and these are all big fish, upper slot and some over. And we had a really, really good time with the juvenile tarpon this week. They were also really happy. We've had a little influx of rain bait throughout our whole area. Rain bait being just really small fry, and there's a lot of it. So You're seeing big schools of jacks all over the bays, just smashing those things. And I'm sure that's what these tarpon are eating and the redfish. Didn't catch a lot of snook this week, but maybe just because we were just looking for the tarpon and the redfish. I'm sure they're out there. I know that the guys in the nearshore waters have done very well on some really nice size snook on some of our wrecks and reefs from, 20 out to about 40 feet of water.
Greg, I'm up here in Northeast Florida, and we are just awash with bait. We've got more shrimp than I've seen in years, more mullet. We've got pogies. We've got everything. Our bait situation is good. Are you guys in good shape on bait down there?
Yeah, it comes and goes. We get some water dumps and stuff that come from all of our back estuaries in the Castaway River. That can make the things a little bit more, a little less salty. So sometimes it comes and goes. All year round, though, we've had a really good supply of bait, whether it was whitebait, pinfish, the maharas on the beaches. The guys that need those big thread fins for the nearshore stuff when they're doing their tarpon or their snook, they've got no problems finding those things. You'll see them out there in acres. And now that we're going to start to cool off in another few weeks or a month, you're going to get that huge push coming from the north of us, from, the Tampa area down. All that bait's going to slowly just migrate south along with those pelagics like the tarpon migration. That'll happen in October, November, and other things like the kingfish and whatnot. I'm sure you're hearing about kingfish reports north of me.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there seems to be, and it seems to, all over the state, seems to have been a pretty good year for kingfish. But that sounds outstanding. I hope everything stays clear for you, Cap, and please tell me we can check with you. Oh, what am I doing letting you go? Before you go, your knots have to hold every day, every week. This is how you make a living. This ain't a game to you.
Yeah.
Give me the 3 that you count on to make your living.
Well, when I'm doubling up to tie to one of my leaders, I'm a Bimini twist guy. I've been using Bimini twist my whole life, and it's a solid knot. It does not give up. And once you learn to tie it, you can tie it pretty quick. In the beginning, for most people, it does take a little bit of getting used to. I use my foot a lot of times to hold the bottom while I tie the top. But I can do that pretty much with my eyes closed these days because I've done it so many times. Another basic knot that I can use on the fly is my simple Unity uni if I just want to go quickly. But one of my favorite knots, Rick, especially because I use a lot of those live baits, is a standard loop knot. So it gives that circle hook the ability to rotate and move in any direction. And I also use a small loop knot when I'm doing fly fishing trips.
Yeah, you know what the Mirror Lure company called that knot? The Mirror Lure knot. You know what the D.O.A. company calls that knot?
The D.O.A. knot.
The D.O.A. knot. Would you like to know what the Rapala company calls that knot? The Rapala knot. But I
just call it good old
loop knot. I know exactly what you're talking about. Ray Markham taught me how to tie that. Must have been close to 40 years ago. Cap, we appreciate it as always. Hope we get to talk soon.
You got it. Tight line.
Talk to you next week, Greg. Thanks, Cap, for a great report. Before we move along, let's get a word from D.O.A. It's finally fall, and how many of us have been waiting for the magic of the mullet run to start, with literally miles of mullet moving along just about every area of Florida's coastline? What you need to cash in on the tarpon, snook, reds, trout, and flounder that are feasting on the poor fingerlings is the perfect mullet imitation. Well, for my money, you can skip all the high-dollar made-in-China mullet imitators. For me and all the podcasters I've talked with, the perfect mullet imitation is made right here in Stuart, Florida. It's called the D.O.A. Baitbuster. Mark Nichols, the owner and manufacturer of D.O.A., spent years designing different baitbusters to swim shallow, medium, or deep. What makes a baitbuster so special? I think it's the tail. If your baitbuster is moving, his tail is flapping. No predator can stand that tail swimming in his face. The D.O.A. Baitbuster, the perfect mullet run bait. Our thanks to Greg Stamper for a great Southwest report. Means it's West Central time, and one Captain Ray Markham. Raymond, how you doing?
Well, I'm getting ready to bail out some stuff, I think. We're getting prepared for a little bit of a storm, I'm afraid, and hopefully it doesn't make a direct hit up this direction, but it's looking like it's kind of headed this way at least. So.
Yeah, let's count on it veering more to the west. I like that track where it shows it going out into the open Gulf. I'd rather it do that. Let it go visit somewhere else. Did you get in any fishing this week?
Well, sir, you know what? Redfish fishing is just crazy right now.
That's good news.
A lot of big redfish, over slot mostly. Few fish in the slot, but it's kind of funny because you're in one area, you get nothing but over slot fish. You go another area, a few miles away, and you got some legal size fish. So it's been good as far as that's concerned. Still a little slim on the trout pickings. The snook fishing has been absolutely crazy. A lot of over slot fish, not a lot of in the slot fish, and a few under slot fish.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's not bad, but it's not exactly what I would call stellar. And, I would anticipate over the next couple of days that the fishing would be really good if I had time to go out and fish, but I'm busy tying boats down and stuff, and I'm trying to get ready for what could be the inevitable here, but just hope not. So,
Ray, I've told this story so many times, but I've never seen anything like it. The animals know exactly what's going to happen. They know. And
they know.
And I will never forget. It's the only time I've ever had this happen. I decided the day before a hurricane was to hit Northeast Florida that I was tough enough to get out and go tarpon fishing one more time. And what we would do is get a big bag of chum from the shrimp boats. And the thing that amazed me was as soon as I dumped that chum, which, I was a guide. I did it every day of my life in the summertime for 11 years. As soon as I dumped that chum into my garbage can to start chumming, the seagulls descended on my boat and would not leave. It looked like Alfred Hitchcock and the Birds. And the instant that you got a piece of chum in the water, something had it. There were sharks, there were tarpon, there were kingfish. It was just amazing. And the seagulls, you could grab them and pull them off of the barrel, and they didn't care. They knew they were going to go a few days without food, and they better feed up. There's no doubt about that.
Well, that is absolutely the case, and I've seen this time and time again upon approaching fronts coming in. If you can stay out until that magic moment when everything shuts off, you can do really well. But once it stops, period.
Yep. All right. Real quick, you're a fishing guide by trade. Your knots have to hold every time. Give me 3 you can't live without.
3 what I can't live without?
Give me 3 knots you can't live without.
3 knots. Okay. I use basically 3 knots. I use the double uni, the uni knot. I use a loop knot, and I use a nail knot.
Yep. You taught me the double uni at one of the first Florida Sportsman Expos, which has to be close to 30 years ago now.
Oh, God, yeah.
And the first 4 or 5 times I tied it wrong. I thought, this guy's lost his flipping mind. This thing doesn't hold.
Well, honestly, I used to tie the bimini all the time back when I was a mono fisherman, because I fished light tackle, like 4 pound, 6 pound, 2 pound test. And it was absolutely critical that you had a knot like that produced some stretch in the line and some give. But, anymore, you're fishing a 10-pound braid that breaks at like 18 to 20 pound test.
Right.
And it's not really a game of test of tackle anymore. It's like you just don't want to bend the hook out and and rip the hook out of the fish's mouth. So,
Ray, for years I went lighter and lighter and lighter on my tackle and thought my accomplishments were getting better. And now the sharks have gotten so bad that I've upped all my tackle. I've gone to tighter drags. We get a sailfish on now, and he gets 200 yards away from us. We're going to go get him. I want him gone. I want him gone in good shape. Because
it's the same way with tarpon fishing here.
Yep.
Everybody used to fish 20-pound test tackle for tarpon, and it might take them an hour and a half, something like that. I got to the point where if I couldn't land the fish in 20 minutes, that I don't want to do it. It's going to break off one way or another, either by its own accord or I'm cutting it off, because the sharks have gotten to the point where they follow those schools of tarpon. and you just don't want to kill the fish. You tire them out to the point where they can't get away from the sharks. So
yep, I love them too much. I'm not going to do that to them. Yep.
Yeah, buddy.
All right, Cap, I appreciate you. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
The good Lord willing and the creek don't rise.
I'm counting on it for you, Cap. We'll talk soon.
You know what Yamaha Outboards love? The genuine formula and consistency of Yamalube marine engine oils. Outboards are subjected to punishing conditions like high loads, salt, and humidity, a mix that automotive oils can't handle. Yamalube full synthetic and marine performance formulas are certified to protect against friction and corrosion for reliable performance every time. Find Yamalube marine oils at your nearest Yamaha Outboard dealer. Locate them at yamahaaoutboards.com/dealers. Yamaha, reliability starts here.
Hey, Raj, being consistent is a mark of a quality product. If you've been Florida's #1 chum for over 10 years, there's got to be a reason.
For 10 years, Tournament Master Chum has lived up to its name. That's why more tournament pros insist on Tournament Master than any other chum. It's the only chum with menhaden milk mixed right in. That means it gets the scent out faster and deeper than any other brand of chum. It comes in a grind size for every species from kingfish to catching bait. Your fishing time is way too precious to use second-rate chum. Bring the action to you by insisting on Tournament Master Chum. It's worth every penny.
When you're ready for the finest in custom-made flat spay or inshore-offshore hybrids, you are ready to meet the Young family in Inglis, Florida. For over 21 years, the Young family has built custom boats one at a time for every type of fishing. Nothing can sneak up on a flat quite like the Gulf Shore flats boats, and I've never fished a better hybrid than the Young 24s and 27s. Rob Young is a naval architect who takes tremendous pride in each and every build for each and every customer that wants their boat custom built exactly the way they want it. Is it time for you to move up? Are you ready to own the finest boat built? Then you need to visit the Young Boat facility in Inglis, Florida, or check them out online at youngboats.com. Our thanks to Ray Markham for a great West Central report and giving us the 3 knots he counts on every day. Captain William Toney, what 3 knots can't you live without?
All right, Rick, here are my 3 favorite knots. My number 1 is I learned it from Mark Nichols. It's called the Canoe Man knot. It's
called the
actually what? Canoe Man is what he called it. He said a guy in a canoe told me about this knot, and he showed it to me, and I've been tying it ever since. It's a loop knot, which and what it does, it basically turns your tag back into itself, so it doesn't catch any grass or anything like that. Now that's my number 1. My number 2 is a Surgeon's. And number 3, I'm kind of tied between 2. I like a polymers, and I also like a spider hitch.
Surgeons. We don't see surgeons use that much. It's kind of a simple knot, obviously.
Yeah, it's pretty quick and simple, like on a boat where you're out there, especially, in the guiding business. None of our knots are real pretty. They're just quick and dirty, but they hold very well. And the Surgeons, I'll usually, they call it triple Surgeons, but I usually put 4 or 5 in it and pull it down tight. So if I'm using, say, 10-pound Power Pro and a 20-pound leader, it matches very well. Now, when you start getting a heavier leader, say 30 to 10, you kind of have to change your knot.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. A Canoe Man knot, a Surgeons, and what else?
It would be, I would say, a polymer or a spider hitch. I like a spider hitch for heavy stuff like tarpon or grouper,
right,
as a shock leader. A little bit similar, I guess, to say, a Bimini twist, but it's a little bit easier to tie.
It's a lot easier to tie. Yep, it is.
A lot easier to tie, but you got the double, you're doubling the braking strength on that shock leader, and works real well. So if I'm doing some inshore grouper or, say, tarpon or something like that, I'm running 30-pound braid to probably about 60-pound leader with the spider hitch.
Gotcha. Perfect. How's your fishing been this week?
Fishing has been good. It kind of ramped up and got hot again on us, and but our trout bite was really good, but all of a sudden it kind of waned off a little bit with the hot water temperatures. We had a lot of rain, which cooled our water, so it was pretty easy to get a limit. Now with the warmer temperatures, you're going to have to work at it a little bit longer. But I'll give you the hint. The hint is an outgoing tide.
Okay.
When you hit that high outgoing tide is going to be your best trout bite. When that tide stops and starts turning in, generally the trout bite will slow down on you. So we're looking at some, outgoing tides this week during the morning. and you're going to have that incoming later in the afternoon. So you want to get on that good trout bite. Do it first thing in the morning. Look for that rock grass or what we call kelp, but really I've been told by a biologist it is sargassum.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, that sounds outstanding. Any redfish around to speak of?
Redfish has been very good. I tell you what, we've had some really nice schools showing up, and what I like to do is try not to pressure them. I try to let them settle in, and if you let them settle in, you'll get a really good bite on them. You know, if you pursue them or try to chase them around, you're just going to end up chasing them. So your outer points, your western-facing points and everything, wait till that tide is about a third high coming in, and then come in real slow and kind of stake out and watch. And if you get on the right school, it could be very fun. Now, it's no problem to go see a pot of them and chase them and all, but what they'll do, they won't settle down and they'll disappear on you, and you won't find them again.
So what you're telling me is a happy redfish is a feeding redfish. If he's not settled down and happy, you can forget throwing at him.
Absolutely. I like to let that tide come in a little bit and kind of stage in, just like during hunting season, get to that stand before dark and settle in and let it happen.
Yep. Did you kill one yet?
Nope. I've been out. I saw a couple bucks, none to shoot at. I did have a doe come in, and I'll tell on myself, I did shoot over her back. That was this past week. So, you know, I did not get one, and hopefully, fingers crossed, the storm doesn't screw us up this week. I got some time off to come out there and give it another shot.
So you're telling me we're still tied for the season?
We're still tied, yep.
Okay, brother. Right, all right, thank you, William. I appreciate it.
We'll see you next week.
Okay, pal. Captain William Toney from the Big Bend. Now it's time for Northwest Florida and Captain Kevin Lanier from KC's Sport Fishing Adventure. Kevin, how we doing?
Hey, Captain Rick, we're doing just great tonight. How about you?
Doing outstanding. Tell me how your fishing's been.
Hey, fishing's been good. You know, we've there's not been a lot of pressure out there here lately, but we had a trip just the other day. Went out and got a handful of black snapper or mangroves, and we got beeliners. Got some Almaco jacks, got kingfish. So it's quite the what we call the plethora of fish. A lot of porgies in there, and so the people went home very happy with a lot of fish.
Good. They had plenty to eat then, huh?
Oh, yeah, plenty to eat. I mean, there's plenty of fish down here to be caught. You know, when we lose the banner, quote, red snapper, people seem to forget about fishing, but we still got a lot of fish down here to catch.
Oh, yeah. What's your situation on triggerfish right now?
We're still open. It's still one. So
yeah, are you able to get them easily?
Yeah, we're able to get them easily, but not all keepers. That's for sure.
Yeah, you guys got a big size limit. What's your size limit?
15-inch to the flat of the tail.
Okay, all right. Well, we're 14, so I guess not that bad.
Not too bad.
Yeah,
not too much different.
Just thought you'd kind of like to know. I mean, just because I'm your buddy and I'm trying to keep you up to date.
That.
We got 20 a few days ago. I just thought I'd let you know. But
nice. We get 20, but we have to throw 19 of them back.
We came home with 20, Cap. I just wanted to make sure you knew. I'm not bragging. I just wanted you to know. Hey, Kevin, let me ask you a question. You do this for a living. This is not a game to you. What 3 knots can't you live without?
The 3 that I tie the most frequently.
Right? And what are they?
Oh, probably the Uniknot, the improved sense, and we do a double uni when we do the line-to-line knots, and those are primarily we do some Palomar knots, a little overhand loop knot. So it just kind of depends on the situation, but I would say those 3 are the biggest ones.
Yeah, I pretty well keep it simple. I will tie an FG knot when I've got time at my kitchen table, and I make my leader real long because I know I'm gonna have to cut it back plenty of times. I don't want to tie that thing again, and I tie a uni, and I'll join my line to line with a nail usually. But that's it for me. Cap, that's an outstanding report. I appreciate the heck out of it, and please tell me we can check with you next week.
We'll be back next week, and we'll talk to you then. Y'all keep us in prayers for the storm.
We sure are. I'll pray for you this week. You pray for me next week.
All right. Sounds great.
Thanks, Kevin. Captain Kevin Lanier. Thanks, Cap, for an outstanding report. Before we move along the coast, let's get a word from the Castaway Hat Company. I bet you don't even remember the days that all us cool kids would rub baby oil mixed with iodine to help us get even darker in the summertime. Being burnt was cool, and even if you weren't a surfing legend, oh, you sure looked the part. Today, a lot of us have paid a huge price for our vanity. We never knew the skin problems and health damage that awaited us. Today's fishermen have the option of being so much healthier in the sun than we ever thought of, thanks in no small part to the Castaway Hat Company, who not only provides our podcasters with Castaway straw hats, but they make the coolest prints on the underside of the brims you ever saw. You may think your Bimini top or T-top blocks the sun, but as an awful lot of us OGs can tell you, you can't have enough protection from sun damage. Do what we do. Put on the sunblock and then put on your Castaway straw hat. You'll look the part of today's best anglers, and you'll even be helping the environment. That's because for each Castaway hat sold, the Castaway Company will pay to have 1 pound of trash removed from our waterway. The burning Florida sun won't be roasting your skin, and believe me, when you age a few years, you'll thank us old guys that have spent a lifetime on the water. Go to CastawayHatCo.com and get your best sun protection today. Castaway Hat Company, a hat for every occasion. Can't leave Florida with going out, the Panhandle, and that's where we find one Captain Tyler Massey. Tyler, how are you?
I'm doing good, Rick. How are you guys?
Good, good. Give me a report. What's happening out there? Did your dirty water go away yet?
Yeah, so we're starting to see some clean water just in the last couple of days. And you know, there's been definitely some wahoo being caught a little closer. So we got our natural bottom edge out there about 30 miles, and there was a couple wahoo caught in the last few days. So it's definitely picking up in the offshore range.
That's outstanding. Anything else going on?
Yeah, as far as the offshore stuff, there's been some blackfin tunas in the same area. We saw some today while we were offshore fishing. We didn't get any bites, but we saw some blowing up flying fish. And then a little bit further, fishing on the oil rigs, blue marlin have been biting live baits. They're live baiting blackfins, and there's been some really good reports out there. I know it's a stretch, but if you got the boat to get out there, you know, this is a great time of year to try to fish on the oil rigs for the marlin.
I would think that's almost 120. That's almost a multi-day trip, isn't it?
Yeah, for the most part, it's the boats do 2 or 3 days out there. It's mostly for the bigger boats, but you have a fast interconsole, you can sneak out there and pull a few baits around for a day.
Yeah. I would think by the time you caught bait and got everything set up, it makes for one long day if you try and do it in one day. Anything going on inshore out there?
Yeah, so the redfish is still heating up. You know, this is the time of year the redfish move to our area. You know, from other areas, they're coming out of the river into the bay system. We got the big bull reds starting to show up too. Not in the big school numbers, but they're just trickling in right now. Mm-hmm. So fishing around structure around our path has been really good for the slot size fish. You'll catch. There's a few pompano mixed in, a few mangrove snapper, a few flounder. You know, it's just getting to the time where, you know, you can go a lot of places and catch a lot of different things. Outstanding.
Hey, let me ask you a question. You depend on this for a livelihood like all our guys do. Give me 3 knots you couldn't live without.
So first and foremost, my 99% knot, I tie it for almost everything, is a uni knot. Mm-hmm. So I tie it the quickest. I can tie it, you know, anything up about 125 pounds of line. Or pound leader, and you know, it's just what I tie for about, you know, for almost everything. Right. Other than that, I do. Sometimes I'll tie a double line fisherman's knot. If I'm using, I use it for like the either the braided line, so I don't get a slip on it in the 40 or 50 pound range, mm-hmm. and then also use it for like if I'm tying 30 pound mono lines to a swivel or something like that.
Okay, got it.
The next one, I'd say still a uni splice. It's my quickest and easiest splice. You know, it works really well for a lot of situations. And it's just I have a lot of confidence in.
Outstanding. Those 3 will not let you down. Tyler, we appreciate it as always, buddy. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
I'll be here, Rick. We'll see you guys.
Captain Tyler Massey wraps up our trip around the state tonight. It's been a lot of fun. Our West Coast guys are all stressing that storm out in the Gulf. Let's hope it misses everybody. I don't see how it can do that, but I'd sure like to see it happen. But we're going to be back next week to check in with the guys again. Boy, it gets fun this time of year. The mullet run's on the move. It's fun to see where it is. Seems like right now it's in Central Florida. There's some in Stewart, not many yet. Jacksonville's loaded, so you know that they're on the way down. Our trip around the state tonight has been brought to you by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. By Shimano, bringing people and nature together. By Tournament Master Chum, the best chum on earth. By Nosara Paradise Rentals, your dream vacation. By D.O.A. Lures, the unfair advantage. By Young Boats, you want the finest in flat spay and offshore hybrids? Check out youngboats.com. By Castaway Hat Company, the hat that's helping save our seas. And by Academy Sports and Outdoors. Right stuff, low price, every day. Until next week, for Florida Sportsman Magazine, I'm Captain Rick Riles, and we'll see you on the rip.